Hello, gorgeous friend. Did you miss me? Well, good news. I'm back. I had a small accidental hiatus, but I don't know if I want to say I'm excited to be back. But goodness me, the things that I am covering today, I don't know if I feel excited about all of the things I'm covering today. However, I'm back. I'm here to try as best as I can to help you make sense of what the hell is actually going on in the world. I wanted to give you an update on some things that have been going on with me, and then I'm actually going to dedicate this episode to some community questions because she's been a time, and I just wanted to be able to hold space for different questions, different worries, concerns, ideas, situations, and give you my hot thoughts. So strap yourself in. I'm back. I'm in a bit of a mood, but like who isn't in these times? And I'm going to give you my hot takes on all your money questions very soon. This is a podcast for everyone that wants to learn how to make fierce and bold choices with their money. We'll talk about how to shape your money mindset, investing for your future, your spending habits, the good and the bad, plus how to achieve your financial goals, and most of all, how to be financially fierce. I'm a financial educator and I want to empower you to be more in control of your money and build the financial future that you want. I run the Greenhouse Money Growing Program, and you can find details of that in the podcast show notes. My name is Jessica Brady. It's time to get financially fierce. Okay, before we get into your community questions, I wanted to do a couple of things. I said at the top, I want to give you a bit of an update of what the hell's been going on in my life. Not all the updates, but like the tidbits. And I thought, given what is going on in the world, I should try to give you my fake economist view. I don't got a crystal ball, and I need to say that I'm recording this on Saturday, the 14th of March. And I feel like at the breakneck speed we are living in these times, literally anything could happen between now and then. But I wanted to give, as at today, what I know, what this might mean, what we need to be considering, what we need to be aware of, and then get to some community questions, which kind of tie in actually. So before we get into those, I need you to know, in case you haven't already, learned, which I'm sure you would have if you've been here for a while. If you're new here, hello and welcome. I wrote a book, and she's real and she's in the world. Ta-da! If you're watching this online on YouTube or on the socials, you will see I'm holding this up like some sort of prize holder of a TV show. If you're listening to this in the car or what have you, you'll be like, what on earth is she doing? Anyway, I'm proudly just presenting my newest, bestest literary baby, Get Growing, a no-nonsense guide to cultivating wealth and financial freedom by moi, Jessica Brady. Based on my experience writing this book, because she's a bit of a beast, she took me a lot of woman power. It might be my only literary adventure. And so I wanted to say very sincerely, thank you so much to all of you amazing people who have already got your hot little hands all over her juicy front cover. I know many of you were waiting and like telling me that you just were like, hurry up, when is this thing coming out? And many of you have got it and been sending me messages on Instagram, emailing me, texting me, going, oh my God, I'm at this bit and this was great. Or, oh my God, this bit was so confronting. I needed to hear this. Thank you. For those of you who haven't purchased it yet, I would be so grateful if you could do so. And in fact, I was talking to Glenn James from the Money podcast yesterday, and he was like, you should never buy one book. You should always buy two, because you want to read it yourself and then you want to gift it to a friend. And I was like, oh my God, that is so true, because books are the greatest gift, I think, in terms of, they suit everyone. And I love nothing more than reading a good book and then telling people all about it. This way you can gift it to them. I actually had a few of you, and shout out to you if you're one of these people, who basically have decided this is the book that they are giving the entire year. This is their gift for the year. And so they've bought a whole bunch of them, and basically no matter who you are, where you're at, they are going to be getting Get Growing for their gift this year. So shout out to you if that is you. And if you haven't got it, I'll put a link in the show notes so that you can order your copy or copies now. I actually had someone message me on LinkedIn or comment on a post on LinkedIn a couple of days ago saying, oh my gosh, my daughter has grabbed this ahead of me. I think her daughter's like maybe preteen. I'm gathering she's preteen. I can't exactly remember how old she is. And she said she's now like stolen it from me, and I can hear her giggling away reading it. And I thought initially, I was like, oh, I don't know if I would let a small innocent child read this book. She's slightly sweary. She's quite fiery. And it certainly wasn't written for children. However, I kind of sat on it a bit longer and I thought, you know what? Let's say she's 11 or 12. I really don't know how old she is, but we're just going to go with that. If an 11-year-old little girl thinks it's scandalous and terribly exciting to be reading a book about money, about how to have a good relationship with money, about the basics and things you need to do around, building wealth and starting investing and all you need to know. And she's giggling because she knows this is like the forbidden fruit because it's got quite a few smatterings of swear words all the way through. That's brilliant. Can you imagine if more, and I'm not suggesting that you buy this for little children, but I'm like, God, if we had a whole army of little kids, particularly little girls, just thinking it was so naughty and fun to be reading this forbidden book and learning about money and empowering them at the same time, I just feel like we would be living in a very different world. Anyway, I look forward to getting her full review post-book and seeing what she made of it. But in all seriousness, thank you. I've had my very first review only a few days ago. If you do read the book and you like it, I would be so grateful if you could review it. I don't know, wherever you bought it, Amazon, Booktopia, Goodreads, wherever else you can review books. If you didn't like it, you can just mosey on along. Anyway, okay, in terms of me, so I accidentally had a hiatus, which I was not planning on doing. Firstly, my car, one of my goals for 2026 is to learn how to just move myself spontaneously from one location to the next without having to drive. I really don't enjoy driving. I find it very stressful and I just don't trust my car at the moment. So I need to do something on that front. And also I've been mucking around with my medications, and shout out to all of my friends who have chronic illnesses and are dealing with meds, and just the outcome of changing meds. It's just really knocked me, and I didn't expect it to knock me. And I kind of have gone a bit, off my plan. I don't know how to say this without saying it online, which I don't think I should do in case any of my doctors are listening to me. I took control of my own destiny and just decided to stop taking some of the meds that my surgeon last year said I can't take. Hello, if you're listening. And predictably, I had the kickback that he suggested that I would have, which has been causing all sorts of issues, but I think it is absolutely the right thing for me to do in the long term. Anyway, it's marked me around bloody year of the horse. What's happened? Where's the horse? I thought everything was getting better. Anyway, I'm feeling a lot better, but it's just been an adjustment period. So yeah, I just haven't been up to doing episodes. So I'm terribly sorry. And I really hope not to have that happen in the future. But I also don't want to pretend that I'm not someone without a chronic illness. I wish I was someone without a chronic illness. It's just a pain in the bum, to be honest. Anyway, okay, let's talk about the world. Since my last episode, we've had quite a lot of changes. So let me tell you what I know as at the day of recording. We are in a not war, according to Penny Wong, but some sort of alliance, strategic. I can't remember the exact word that she bandied around, but basically we're going in to defend and work with our partners. We've seen strikes in the Gulf region. We're seeing people quite stressed. We've got lots of boats stuck in a canal. Boats. I'm making them sound like they're like small fishing boats. We've got tankers. I don't know if that's what they're called. Please know that I know nothing about any of these correct terms. So if you're sitting there cringing, I'm right there with you. Basically, there's a canal in the Gulf area where these ships are stuck that controls about 20% of the global oil supply, I believe. That has obviously had big implications. I drove past a petrol station this morning. I'm never really one to look at what petrol costs because I mainly use go-gets. I know I've got a car. I know I'm sorting it out. Thank you so much for your advice and help. But it isn't something that I track regularly. And also because with my car that I just literally use, like driving Miss Daisy with the dog, we go to the local park and then we drive home. I reckon I fill up petrol once every 2 months in that car. I'm not even joking. However, we've seen increases to petrol prices already. Now, here's what I know and here's what I don't really know. I know that already people are worried about what this is going to mean. I was listening to a CBA economist on Friday, so that was only yesterday morning. Goodness me, it feels like that was a long time ago. Basically saying that this is likely to have an implication on inflation, and I'm going to explain it in the best way I think I can, because I think it's one thing to be like, oh my God, there's like all this noise and news about what's going on in the world. Fair. Oh my God, how's this going to impact petrol prices? What does this mean for us? How does this impact us? And I'm going to do my darndest to try to explain it. A, I hope I'm right. And B, I hope it makes sense, because we're seeing so many headlines that create fear. They permeate into us, and our brain is really clever, wanting to keep us safe. So our brain pays attention. We become really alert and heightened in times like this, because your brain is like, hello, are we safe here? Like, do we need to get out of here? But it also can then it feeds off each other, and it becomes a contagion. And I just want to try to give you what I know and what this might mean, but I also don't want to pretend like I have all the answers. And no one does. This is a minute by minute kind of environment, and I hate that we're living in it on top of everything else. So, what I would say is check out from the news when you need to. Check where you're getting your news from, and maybe go and find other sources and come back to, what does this mean for you over the long term? And is panic or fear overtaking any sort of rational, logical plan that you may have had in place? And this will become more apparent in the community question element. So if we have smaller supply because we've got tankers stuck in a tiny little canal that appears to have no other way out, I mean, at this point we can just groan about the fact that you just think, this has happened before. Because maybe you could say to yourself, oh, well, maybe they didn't realize Iran would do this. Nah, I think it's already happened in 1974 or something like that. There's been precedents on this. Maybe someone somewhere somehow could have thought to themselves, this is quite a lot of global supply that we've got in one tiny little canal, which is very teeny from one side to the next. If something goes haywire, this is going to really disrupt the entire world. Perhaps we should think of some alternatives. Clearly no one anywhere did that, or if they did, I don't know what's happened in terms of those meetings, but nothing appears to have been done. And so I think it is okay to hold space for things being true, not necessarily different things, but just many things being true at the same time. So yes, we can look back and go, WTF, how did no one see this and do something about this? And then the reality of, okay, well, it is so annoying that this impacts me. I feel like I shouldn't be impacted. How is this going to impact me? And being upset and frustrated about that, totally fair. And also worried, also fair. All the things, all fair. So when oil prices go up, things cost more. So based on what the CBA economist said yesterday, they think that this will increase inflation even if oil prices alone go up. Now, the cascading implications of that is where it becomes quite, I don't want to say dicey, but frustrating. So think about it. Let's say our petrol goes up, which it already has, and it's been quite volatile over the last week or so, and no doubt will remain so for some time, I would imagine. But let's just say petrol prices go up. What you need to think about is what that means for all of the products and services we use. So if you are getting your groceries, you've got to think about the fact that the truck that needed to deliver those groceries is now paying more for petrol. If you look at all of these other services, and what does that do? That either squeezes profit margins or it increases the cost to the consumer. And so when we have increased costs to the consumer, we have rises in inflation. Now, we have just seen a rate increase only a month ago. We are having an RBA meeting the following Tuesday from when I'm recording this. I think all the major banks are predicting another rate rise of 25 basis points or 0.25%. It's looking incredibly likely, A, because we were already over that inflation band of 2 to 3% that the RBA targets. I don't have the monthly data, but I think the real inflation data that I last saw was 3.8%. It is very likely that these global events are going to push inflation higher, probably for a period of time. What does the RBA have to do during these periods? They have to try to cool the economy. What we don't want, or they don't want, is a period of what we call hyperinflation. And I did a post on this recently in the social media, and it absolutely blew up. So why don't I explain it in a bit more detail? So hyperinflation you may have seen in the past, or you might have seen recently in other areas of the world, It's a devaluing of currency. So inflation gets ridiculously high and therefore their currency value goes down rapidly. And so you've seen this in parts of the world where it costs hundreds of thousands, millions of dollars for a loaf of bread. Yeah, the currency is really devalued. Now, we don't want that. And so because inflation is running higher, everything is starting to cost more, they're trying to cool the economy. How do they do that? They have but one way from an RBA level. And when you've only got a hammer, everything looks like a nail. They literally have one thing that they can do, and that is increase, keep on hold, or reduce interest rates. Now, if they're trying to get inflation down, they are likely to increase interest rates, which hits our hip pocket. So we have less discretionary income to spend to try to cool the economy. Now, there's a couple of very BS problems with that. My biggest one, which is why I think this post that I recently did on social media blew up, is that it's an incredibly unfair way to do it. Because if we think about the Australian landscape, about a third of Australian homes are owned by people who are debt-free. So they don't have a mortgage. Presumably they might have cash. During higher interest rate periods, they actually get a higher return if they've got money invested in the banks because they've got spare cash. You know, banks tend to do quite well in periods of high interest rates because we pay for that when we have a mortgage. So basically what this means is when we have periods of higher interest rates or higher inflation, and we're trying to bring down the inflation number, we do that. I say we like I'm the RBA. The RBA does that by increasing interest rates. It hurts mortgage holders and renters. Now, these are already like some of the most financially stressed and stretched people we got. In fact, if you look at global data, we've got some of the highest house to income multipliers in the world. It's not an award you want to win. So to put the pressure of easing the global economy, well, not the global economy, easing the inflation in Australia, which is impacted through no fault of our own from what's going on in the globe or the global economy or those geopolitical macro events, all these big words that get bandied around. We say, hello, Mr. and Mrs. and them's homeowners and renters, presumably renters, because most investors pass any of the rate rises along when they can. Obviously, there's market demand and all of those things, but most people do, and they kind of can in most places without much concern because there are such low vacancy rates. We'd like to now increase your rental amount or we'd like to increase your mortgage repayment. You are going to do all of the heavy lifting. We're going to squeeze your fiscal belt, thank you, to do the economy a solid and bring the growth rate down. Yet the people who have the most amount of money, the people who have the most amount of capacity, those homeowners with no debt on it, they are likely to keep spending because they can. It's an incredibly unfair way to tackle inflation conceptually, in my mind. Now, government spending is a lot, and there's a lot of conversation about how government spending has impacted inflation. There's also been a lot of conversation around the fact that, well, this is largely due to energy prices. This is largely to do with wars that have gone on through no fault of our own. People are like, I don't have anything left to squeeze out right now. How am I going to make this work? This is what I want you to think about, particularly if you're worried about, your level of emergency savings, kind of your job and job capacity, or, we've seen some redundancies over the last couple of weeks, particularly in the tech space. I don't want you to panic, but I want you to be calm and clear. Cool. If this happened, where am I at? Like as best you can, leave your emotions at the table. How much spare cash do I have? What are my job prospects looking like? How employable am I? If my industry was to have some, issues over the coming months or years or whatever, what else is there out there? Like, if you want to get really pragmatic, let's do that, but let's not panic. Yeah, and think the world is on fire, albeit it actually literally maybe, and do something irrational. Annoyingly, this is not the first time we have seen something like this happen. Everyone looks different. I absolutely understand that. But I want you to remember, particularly if you're a new investor, particularly if you're just getting a handle of your money, there is go and have a look at all of the data. I don't want to sound flippant, but I also don't want you to think that this is the first time ever and that there's no precedence of this happening before and markets recovering. There is. Does it always happen quickly? No, it doesn't always happen quickly. Look at how long it took post-GFC for markets to return. It took years. COVID was like the Clayton's market dip, like the one that you're having when you're not really having one. I know that it probably sounds quite rude, but it was a very V-shaped recovery. Went down sharply and then recovered pretty quickly, sharply as well. Not all look like that. So we got to be clever and we've got to be clear-headed, because fear is never a good place to make long-term investment decisions from. So are we likely to pay more for petrol? Yeah, probs. Is it likely to increase inflation? Yeah, probs. My very technical words. Is that likely to lead to higher interest rate? Yeah, probs. And my issue with how this is sort of the narrative of this in the media is something that really pisses me off. And look, I probably fit into this because sometimes journalists ask me, what's the interest rate going to do in the next 6 months? I'm like, I don't know, dear Liza, I didn't bring my crystal ball. At the end of last year, most of the major economists were saying that the Feb rate cut, well, the rate meeting would be a cut. Instead, it was a hike. I genuinely think this is like a weather person trying to predict what the weather's going to be like in 6 months. It's like, oh, well, based on what we normally see around that time, it's probably going to look like this. But that doesn't mean they have any idea of whether that's actually going to eventuate on the day. So keep that in mind whenever you're listening to economists. They are making the best guess judgment with the information that they have on the day. And the further out they're trying to forecast, the murkier and foggier it gets, because no one could have predicted things like, COVID. You could argue some people did predict the GFC, but some of those really big events that have happened in the world that have led to changes in share markets, they weren't predicted more often than not by economists. So I caution you. Listen to them with popcorn if you're interested in their musings, but remember, they don't always have the answers. They're often wrong. They are looking based on data at what might happen over a long, long period. We won't know until we go through that period whether they're right or wrong. And you don't want to have made a decision because you watched the news or saw something on the socials and were like, shit, I need to make a knee-jerk reaction here. I'm ready for the horse to just come and make this year the best one. Any day now. Any single day now. I'd be happy. Okay, after the break, I'm going to answer a couple of community questions. One of them, the first one, kind of bleeds into this what we were just talking about, but I want to get a bit more specific, and then I've got another juicy one coming right up.
If you're after personal financial advice, don't get it from a podcast. If you would like help based on your own personal situation, head over to moneypodcast.com.au, click Get Help, and we'd be happy to introduce you to one of our trusted professionals. Our panel of vetted financial advisors and mortgage brokers work with people all over Australia so they can connect with you wherever you are. That's moneypodcast.com.au and click Get Help.
Okay, welcome back. It is now community question time. Hey, if you've got a question for me that you want me to answer, either as a longer form in my weekly money dilemma or through the podcast, DM me, Jess Brady _financial advice on the gram, or email me, hello@jessicabrady.com.au. The first question I got earlier this week from someone that I know who has done work with me in the past. It said, I know it's not an easy question to ask. Should I move my super into cash until we ride the wave of this war? Let's just do a couple of things. Let's take a big deep breath. Let's pause here. And let's think about what we're actually asking. We're asking, should we make a massive investment change on one of, if not the biggest asset you may ever have that is designed as your own personal pension fund for your latter years because of something that is happening in the here and now? Now, I don't know how old you are, obviously, but I really want you to think about between however old you are now and when you can access your retirement funds or your superannuation, how many years is that? I was thinking about this on the car ride over to the podcast studio today. For some weird reason, I was thinking about what life is going to be like when I turn 50. When I was little, I used to think about, wow, how is it going to feel when you become an adult? And obviously, I still don't know the answer to that. So I guess in my brain, I'm now like, what is life going to be like when I'm 50? Am I going to be an adult at 50? Anyway, if you're 50, and can you tell me whether you feel like an adult or not by now? Because I don't yet. Anyway, if you have decades like I do until you can access your superannuation, I want you to think about in 25, 30, however many years away it is what's going on right now going to be something that genuinely could completely take you off course in terms of how much you have? Is it likely to be a change in the market that is going to happen over and over and over again for differing reasons because of something out of our control? And what are the implications of taking the money off the table because of fear? Because what we're really saying, if we look through this question, is the world is shit. I'm scared. Should I just move all my money because I'm worried it's going to get worse? So what we're talking about here is loss aversion. We as humans are much more worried about things sliding south than the potential for gains. Yeah, we don't see $100 gain nearly as interesting or as big of a thing as we do say $100 loss. We see that as, oh God, that's terrible. We make $100. We're like, oh yeah, cool. We're much more worried about the risk side. Again, that's our brain. It's clever. Yeah, it's trying to keep us safe. But in a money sense, it is doing the exact opposite. So the answer is it depends. General advice only, all the things. But if you are someone who is nowhere close to retirement age, even if you're close to retirement age, like pulling all of your money out of the market and parking it in cash is a strategy that I want you to go and sense check, stress test, go and see a financial advisor if you really are worried. If you think you're at risk of actually doing this, go and seek financial advice or go and join a money program immediately, if not sooner. Before you do it, go and seek financial advice or go and join a money program, like right now, before you do the thing. Because making that decision could take quite a lot of wealth off the table. In fact, if you look at the research that's out, there's some really good research from Russell Investments, I think it is. And they look at if you'd invested, in fact, I've got it in the book. Oh my God, why don't I find it in the book? Okay, I need hold music. Dun, 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 dun. P.S. The book is really fun. Obviously, I'm paid to say that because I wrote the fucker. No, but in all seriousness, I based the themes of the book on all these different gardening metaphors. So the first chapter is called Roots. It's all about my relationship with money and the money fuck-ups that I've made in my life, which was very vulnerable to do, by the way. But the fun bits is I have had so many beautiful people add their money insights into here. So shout out to you if you are one of the people throughout this book who is profiled in the Money in the Wild features. I think it's really nice to see, I am all about making money more community-based and less scary and more collective because we're all out here just doing it. And so thank you to you if you responded to me and my call out many years ago. It was not many years ago. It was like a year ago where I was like, oh, hey, I'm doing this thing. I can't tell you what it is, but if you would like to be profiled, could you send me your info? And I had too many people reply to me. I was so heartbroken that I couldn't put all of these features in the book. Now I need to figure out what to do with the rest of the very, very juicy insights that people gave me. And a big shout out if you're in there. But yeah, I love that the book has got stories because I think we connect with that so well. And I don't know, I really like the different money themes. So yeah, Roots is about my relationship with money. There's Dirt. Dirt is was my most heinous but probably favorite ranty part of the book. It's chapter 2. When I tell you I could have written an entire book based on Dirt as a chapter, I wish I was lying. I had to leave things out of the book that I fought so hard to keep in. It is basically the dirt on the bullshit, let's call it, patriarchal systems that have held most of the people, the masses, out of money. The more I kept digging, the dirtier it got, my friends. And I do a pretty, it's like an expose. I talk about the systems and laws that literally locked people out of money because I'm so sick of people thinking that it's their fault when actually the people in charge literally made laws to lock people out. Anyway, then I talk about what you can do, how you can change your belief systems, how to create new money habits, and what have we got? Seeding. So we're talking about cash flow, weeding, getting rid of all the stuff that overgrows your money. And then I teach you how to sprout your investments, and I teach you my garden methodology in the grow chapter. And then I talk about winter, which is all about protecting yourself. So there's lots of important how-tos for you. I've tried to make it really practical and different steps depending on where you're at, but it's full to the brim of beautiful people's stories to make you feel less alone, to make you laugh. I ask people, What's the money decision that you regret? What's your biggest aha moment? What do you wish you learned earlier? If you won the lotto, what would you do? What are goals that you're working on right now? People were so beautifully honest and vulnerable. Anyway, I think it's lovely to have real stories when we talk about money. Anyway, it's taken me approximately 10 and a half minutes to find this piece of data that I was looking for from Russell Investments. Okay, this is from page 244. Here I am doing an accidental book reading, which I was not planning on doing, but we're going with it. If you'd invested $100,000 from 2014 in the S&P ASX 300, so that's the top 300 companies in Australia by market capitalization. So from 2014 for 10 years, so to 2024, here's how much you would have in total if you held your investment portfolio for the full 10 years versus what you'd have if you'd missed out on some of the best days of the share market. Because remember, before I've gone on my 17 tangents, I'm answering the community question. She's back with a vengeance. Should I move my super to cash until we see the fallout of this war palaver? So if you'd had 100,000 invested for 10 years in the ASX 300, let's say you were invested for all days over that 10-year period, your $100,000 in the ASX 300 would now be worth, as at 2024, $213,072. Probably feeling pretty happy you've over doubled your money. If you had missed the 10 best days on the share market, which tend to be quite shortly after the worst days, and we don't know which are the dog days until they're over, if you'd missed the 10 best days, your portfolio would be worth only $136,594. Remember, if we'd invested for all of the days, $213,072. So we missed the 10 best days, $136,500, let's call it that. If you'd missed the 20 best days, you're at $104,154. So over that 10-year period, if you'd missed the 20 best days, you're basically up $4,000, probably inflation. If you missed the best 30 days, your portfolio is at $83,233. And if you missed the 40 best days over that 10-year period, your portfolio that you invested for $100,000 is now only worth $68,289. What is the lesson here? If we're investing for the long term, we've got to stay in for the long term. We've got to accept that this is par for the course. There are going to be days that go up. There are going to be days that go down. In fact, most of those days when we've got big trends, they tend to kind of be weird, I don't want to say besties, but like acquaintances, and they're like very close to one another. I don't know which are the 40 best days in the market over a 10-year period. Do you? Do you know which are going to be the 40 best days in the coming decade? If so, please slide into my DMs immediately, if not sooner. Jess Brady _financial advice. This is what we're talking about here, though. Taking ourselves off and sitting on the sidelines and waiting for markets to go back down. We've done a few things. We've crystallized our loss, if we have had a loss, and I'll come to that in a moment. Because at the moment, we're talking about a paper loss, if any. But we've potentially crystallized our loss if we move to cash. We sit panicked on the sidelines. Now, we're talking about superannuation here, but if it's in an investment portfolio, we've also got spending risk that we might just use the money for something else. And when do we buy back in? Normally when market prices have gone up again. We wait to get it back to where it was, if not higher, before we then feel confident enough to go back in. Now, if we think about that like rationally, it doesn't make sense, does it? And this is where I talk, I bang on all the damn time and like, thanks for sticking with me. Because sometimes I feel like a broken record. Money's emotional. Like, let's make no mistake about it. And it's totally fair if you feel terrified or just anything. Whatever you're feeling right now, I'm just here to validate you through the screen or through wherever you listen to this from. It's totally okay to feel however you're feeling. What is not okay is to take yourself out of the race for no reason other than fear when you have a long-term investing goal. If you wanted this money for a house deposit in the next year, firstly, why the hell is it invested in the markets? Honestly. And secondly, like, what are the tax implications of doing that? Like, this is the other thing. Like, you've got tax to consider, particularly if you're investing in your personal name. Like, we should be investing for superannuation for the long term. If we're investing for things like passive income or to move us to part-time or whatever our long-term goals are, it's long term. 7, 10 years plus, we've got to ride the wave, get an accountability buddy. Like, if you're a greenhouse member, go and look at your sleep at night plan. the commitment that you made to yourself, that I forced you to make to yourself because I said bad times are coming, I just don't know why or when, go and look at it where you have answered hopefully a series of very important reflective questions and a commitment to yourself about when and why you would change your holdings in your investments. And that might be a very, very important thing to do right now. Otherwise, turn off the news, take the app off your phone, forget your super fund login details, like whatever you need to do to not make a knee-jerk reaction right now is what I'm going to ask you to do. Could it get worse? Of course. Could it stay down for a long period of time? Yeah, of course it could. Does that change my answer? No, it doesn't. If you're retiring in a couple of years, my answer is different. But if you've got a long period of time to ride out waves, this was always going to be a potential. Let me also just myth bust something because I was looking at this morning. Hold on. One of my 70 million tabs that I have open. How I wish I was joking. All right. I actually looked at markets that closed yesterday because I'm recording this on a Saturday because #commitment, my friends. All right. So recording this on the 14th of March. If you look at the ASX 200, so that's the top 200 companies on the share market based on market capitalization, and you look at the 1 day, you'll see red and you'll see this horrific looking little roller coaster. Like you wouldn't want to actually be on a roller coaster ride like that. You'd be vomiting. Or maybe that's just because I'm terrified of roller coasters. You know, red, it's down. I heard yesterday, because I'm a nerd and listen to economist and news podcasts about money, however many bazillion dollars wiped off the share market. I bloody hate when they say wiped. It's not true. The same value, the same amount of units or shares still exist. The value of them has gone down, but it's not like, you know, a bazillion companies no longer exist from yesterday. Like that's not a reflection of what happens. But again, it's good news for them because it sells. Bad news sells. Anyway, point being, 1 day, she looks average. She looks rough, to be honest, with the red and the thing. 5 day looks all right. The point being, you know, I'm not here to day trade. You're not here to day trade. If you're looking for day trading stock speculative stuff, I'm afraid you've been very patient because that's not what you're getting here. What I instead did is looked at the 5-year average. And if you look at where yesterday, as at the day of recording, we ended the market, and you look at 2025, where we ended the ASX 200 yesterday is higher than, from what I can see, all of 2025. All of 2025. The ASX 200 yesterday, as at the 13th of March, closed at 8617. From what I can see based on this data, oh no, we had a tiny, maybe the third quarter of, so around August, September, we had a bit of a higher run. But if you look at most of 2025, in fact, most of 2025, I would say except for the back quarter, it was lower than this. Zooming out and looking at that gives us perspective. If I go to the S&P 500, which I have already done, here's something I prepared for you earlier. 1 day, AV, looks very AV. 5 day, looks AV. I'm talking about the returns. 1 month still doesn't look very good. If we go and we zoom all the way out to 5 years, I mean, the US market, equity market over the last sort of 10 to 15 years has been pretty phenomenal off the back of the GFC. Like, again, we're kind of back to where we were. So as at the 13th of March, the S&P 500 ended at 6740. I mean, it was slightly high. It was higher in December of last year, slightly higher for some of November, tiny few days in October by the looks of it. The rest of 2025, it wasn't that high from what I can see. No one was like, apart from the tariff moment, I don't know. I think we're just losing some perspective here. I don't want to downplay the fact that, you know, World War III could be erupting because we have moronic, narcissistic megalomaniacs in charge and at the helm. Can you say that out loud? Anyway, I don't plan on going to the US for a very long time because as if they would let me in. So I don't want to downplay or pretend like this isn't a potential real, I don't want to say opportunity for conflict, but like there might be conflict. I mean, there already is conflict, but like this could get worse, of course. But as someone who friggin' loves history, albeit I do specialize, and I say specialize, but I mean dabbles in Tudor history, which is not terribly relevant when it comes to investment markets. But as someone who does really like history and reads a lot about history, The Ascent of Money by Niall Ferguson, one of my favorite books about the history of money, highly recommend that you read it. If you are worried and you're like, oh my God, the sky is falling, the sky has never fallen before, go and read that book and you will learn, oh, the sky's fallen quite a few times now and everyone seems to be able to patch it back on up there. So, do I think you should be moving your super to cash? General advice only. Nah, probs not. Remember, when your employer is putting money into super, you are buying more units. If you're buying when markets are down, you're buying the dip. How low does the dip go? We don't know until it comes up again. It just means that the stuff's on sale. And at some point, statistically speaking, if you are well diversified, if you've got your asset allocation correct, so how much you've got divvied up into where the money's going, being different, the Aussie market, the global market, infrastructure, property, cash, term deposit, whatever the mix is, if you've got that right and you've got years to ride the wave, I'm with you. We can be on a weird longboard together. That is my answer to Community 1 question. You are so welcome. You're like, why is she back? All right, last question for today's episode. Different theme, which I think we need right now. If I'm about to come into $40,000 of cash that took years of advocacy, how would you invest it? Juicy. I was thinking about this. Glenn from the Money, Money, Money podcast does What Would Glenn Do? WWGD. And after getting this question, and shout out to the person who gave me this question via Instagram, I was like, do we need a WWJD? EP style? What would Jess do? Not Jesus, Jess. Because I feel like this question is, what would Jess do? Let me know. Should we do WWJD episodes, or is that just too close to Glenn's and he'll be like, excuse me, you've stolen my idea? True. Okay. This is an interesting question. What interests me the most of this question is that it says it took years of advocacy. So this is not been, from what reading between the lines here, something has happened, I'm imagining. A pot of money then appears out of thin air. Not out of thin air, but somewhere. And people are having to figure out who is getting this money, why are they getting this money, how much of this money are they getting. Let's just say money and all of those questions is such an emotional, draining, conflict-full situation. I don't know if this is an inheritance. I have no idea what this is. But if you have wealth, please do not leave people in this situation where people are having to fight it out, thrash it out. Again, I'm making assumptions because I don't know all the information, but let's just put our creative hat on and assume here. A, it might not go to the person that you want it to go to. B, they might get too much, too little based on what you wanted. C, it's a shit fight. Don't leave people in this mess. It can destroy. I've seen it destroy families. I've seen it destroy friendships. I've seen it eat people alive because they feel enormously guilty. I've seen it mentally drain. I don't want to say ruin people. I've seen significant mental health issues for people that have had to advocate for themselves and fight. And I've seen people give up before they even got an outcome because they just didn't have any steam left and they didn't have any money left to fight it anymore. If you've got wealth, please don't leave people in that position. I don't want you to use a post office will because I think they're shite, because they're not shite, but they have, I think unless you really know what you're doing and you do it all 1,000,000,000% correct, I think it's really open to, it's risky. But if that's all you got capacity to do, like Mabes, you need to go there. Also, this is not sponsored, but maybe go and check out Willed. My friends at Willed, they're cheap. I just had one of my members use them and say it was amazing. Obviously, I don't know your circumstances of whether it will fit, but it's low cost wills. If you're based in New South Wales, I think you need to go get it rubber stamped at a courthouse. But for other places, I think it's genuinely 100% online. Anyway, otherwise, go and seek help. Go and get an estate planning lawyer to do this for you. So don't leave anyone in that mess. And before you're like, bitch, I don't have any money, don't worry. This isn't an issue I need to worry about. If you don't now, you will soon. And secondly, what about your super, my friend? You got any life insurance in that super? Yeah, that forms part of your estate as well. So you probably have more than you think you do. Do not tell me that you don't need a will. You do. And think of all of the cats and dogs you could rescue if you don't want anyone that you know to have your money. You could be over there doing the Lord's work, getting all the pounds empty. Oh God, wouldn't that be so good? I want to be rich enough where I can just empty a pound. When billionaires think about how wealthy they want to be, I aspire to that level of wealth. I don't want to be a billionaire by any stretch of the imagination. I want to be can free a pound level of wealthy. That's what I'm aiming for over here. I'm just trying my darndest. Okay, so $40,000 is a decent chunk of money. It's one of those complicated situations where 40 grand is nothing to sniff at. Like it's a good amount of money, but 40 grand can also be spent like that. I have seen it over and over again. So what would I invest in? I'd do a couple of things. I would invest in my emergency savings first and foremost. I would boost that if I don't feel comfortable with its current levels. I'd have 3 to 6 months more if I knew I was uninsurable and had no income protection or didn't have the right level of income protection and couldn't get an increase. I'm naturally cautious. I'd do overs, particularly in this time for me, especially with all my health BS. So I would invest in my emergency savings account for emergencies. Say it with me, for emergencies, not emergency holidays, not emergency sales at my favorite shop, not emergency, events. Emergencies. I get sick, the car breaks, like some bullshit, unexpected, unplanned financial situation lands on your lap like a hot pile of turd. That's your emergency. You'll know when you find yourself in an emergency financial situation. And your biggest problem during that time is you'll probably be scared to spend your emergency savings despite it being there for that. If you're like, oh, I think I just want to dip into it, I can probably almost definitely assure you that that's not an emergency, because people tell me they have enormous guilt during periods of financial stress using their emergency savings because something flicks in their brain. So assuming I've got good emergency savings, assuming I have no debt, bad debt, I should say, so non-deductible debt, so be it credit cards, buy now, pay laters, personal loans, whatever it is, something that is higher interest rate against something that is devaluing as an item, not increasing like an asset would, I'd get rid of those. And then if I had a pot of money left over, I'd be thinking about a couple of things. I would be thinking about my income and my career, and I would be wondering if I should spend any of that money upskilling, doing any work to maybe need to train in something new or different, particularly if I was worried about the longevity of my career, if I was in something where I'm worried that AI is going to come and take over because the robots are coming and they're coming to take over. Do I need to do that? And if I do, or if I was worried about that, I would be probably allocating some money to go and do some studies or training or anything that's going to make me more employable, more money, the next challenge that comes with more money, bonus potential, whatever it is. I would look at using some of it for that. And then I would also think about, well, what are my goals? Particularly if you've had to fight and advocate for this for a really long time, there might be things that you're like, oh, that just seems such a pie in the sky opportunity. I can't do that right now. Maybe it's you've never been able to invest before. Maybe this is to seed you being able to go in with someone and buy your first place. I wouldn't say $40,000 is going to be enough for that necessarily, albeit we do have the 5% schemes. We've got the 2% scheme if you are a single parent, but then you're like loading yourself up with debt. But I'd go back to your goals. And given times are always changing, if it's time to redo your goals, redo them. If you didn't do them at the start of the year because you were just like, can't be asked, redo them. And redo them as often as you need to, either because your situation has changed or because you have changed. And you're like, actually, that thing is no longer lighting me up. If it doesn't spark joy, I'll light you up. Get rid of it. Because in these times, my friend, and the times that I believe we are walking into, you are going to fight tooth and nail to be able to get your goal growing. This is not the time for wishy-washy goals. This is the time to go, you know what? I'm not buying anything new for a month. I'm not, doing X, Y, or Z because this goal is super important to me and everything else is starting to cost more. I'm going to fight to keep that alive and well. If you don't care about your goal enough, it is not likely to happen. So now is the time to go back to your goals and figure out, okay, of the pot of money that I have left, be it the entire 40,000 or something in between, that and zero, hopefully it's not zero, what could this money help me with? I would say, honestly, you do you, don't spend it on a holiday. There is potentially, and I wouldn't say with 40,000, but if you get a larger amount of money, I do like to pose the question, particularly if it's an inheritance, is there something that you would either like to do or have that is a beautiful keepsake, memory, experience, something to hold on to that isn't just money for money's sake, in recognition of how that money came to you? Maybe it was a family member or a friend or something. Is there, I've seen people buy pieces of jewelry. I have a beautiful friend that I talk about in the book and what her grandmother did when she passed away. You'll have to read the book to hear what that is. People can do some really beautiful things to mark someone's life with some of the money, you might want to consider doing that if that's the circumstance. But again, a portion, because it can then be a very slippery slope of, oh, they would have really liked me to go on this big holiday, or they would have really liked me to upgrade the car even though I really didn't need to, because they would have really liked knowing that I was safe. It's like, well, was your car unsafe, or was it just that you wanted a new one? You know, like we can feed ourselves these fibs that become very convincing very quickly. So I'm sorry that you had to advocate for yourself. I genuinely am, without knowing exactly what's happening, because that is exhausting, emotionally taxing work. And it's likely that you're probably quite tired and feel like you've just been through the car wash without the car by the end of it. Take a moment, especially if you had to go through something quite traumatizing to get that money. I want you to take a moment to recognize that you fought for yourself. No matter what the outcome was, in this case, it sounds like it was the outcome that they were looking for, but just to know that you had a boundary that sounds like it was crossed, or you had something where you were like, actually, I need to stick up for myself here. I'm going in to fight for myself, is so admirable. And it's something that you need to be proud of, even if you don't get the outcome that you're looking for, to know that you have said, not on my watch. I'm going to try really hard here, and I am going to back myself, and I am going to say I am worth fighting for. That is something that you should celebrate. And when you see other people do it, celebrate it with them, for them, tell them, I admire that you did that. I'm so proud of you for standing up for yourself. Babe, boundaries. You're doing so good with boundaries. Like, I see you. I know this must have been a lot or is a lot. You're doing really great. This is fantastic. I know that sounds silly, but like, we just live in an age where we're just tearing the shit out of each other. Not always. And like, I don't let it happen in my world, but like my members do not do that ever. I give them the house guidelines in the Greenhouse and the Evergreen Money Club, and I've never had to implement them. Everyone is so lovely and beautiful, and it genuinely makes my heart sing. But like, God, go into any of the dumpster fire social media profiles. Like, you don't have to scratch far to find people just ripping the shit out of each other. Let's do the thing where we say, you did good. I'm really proud of you. So I want you to know that if this is you, and I know who sent me this question, I am really proud of you. If this is a massive amount of money in the context of your life, I don't want you to look back and be remorseful that you used it on something that in retrospect wasn't long-term that important to you. And maybe it is that you can use this as the Kickstarter to grow your wealth. And maybe it's that you finally get to start your long-term investment fund. And if you do, then I want you to think about potentially breaking up that money and dollar cost averaging it in. Maybe you do it over a matter of months, because we don't know what the world's in for the next little while. And then we're not trying to pick which is the best day to buy in. We're just going with a regular cadence. We're looking for well-diversified portfolios, depending on what risk profile you have. And I know that the person who did this has worked with me before. So I would say go back and watch week 6 and 7 of the Greenhouse, because you might need a bit of a refresh. Okay, that is all for today's episode. It was meant to be a short episode. Obviously, I'm doing my usual job of great short episodes. Short, sharp, I specialize. If you have a community question, send it to me. Jess Brady _ financial advice on the gram. If you've got any topics, themes, ideas that you want me to cover in Financially Fierce, please let me know as well. A big thank you again to everyone who's purchased the book, and I can't wait to hear your reviews. Obviously, 5 stars all around. No, but in all seriousness, this book is the book that I wish that I had got when I was in my early 20s, when I was terrified to invest money, when I just felt like saving was the only thing that I could do or knew how to do or felt confident doing. I wish that I had felt less alone in my money journey. And look, I got my first advisor when I was in my early 20s. I've done some really, looking back objectively, quite clever things with my money, and I didn't feel confident or clever doing it. I just kind of hoped that I was doing the right thing until I studied financial advice, and then was like, oh my God, why the hell don't we learn this at school? This is the book that I wish 11-year-old me read. She would have been giggling. She would have been reading it like under the covers with a torch, like some sort of banned book at the library. Give it to your friend who wants to feel more confident with money. Give it to your friend who says that they will never be good at money. Give it to your friend who is a fierce, fiery feminist who is like, show me how we locked people out of money. Give it to your friend who is ready to take the next step with their money. Give it to your friend who you've never had a money conversation with. Basically, just give it to all of your friends. And let me know what they say and what you say. That is all from me. Do you remember what comes next? You know what to do. Go now and be financially fierce. Bye.
We acknowledge the traditional owners of country throughout Australia. We pay our respects to elders past and present. Any advice is general financial advice only, which does not take into account your objectives, financial situation, or needs. Because of that, you should consider if the advice is appropriate to you and your needs before acting on the information. If you do choose to buy a financial product, read the Product Disclosure Statement, PDS, and Target Market Determination, TMD, and obtain appropriate financial advice tailored to your needs. Jessica Brady is an Authorised Representative of Paragem Pty Ltd, Authorised Representative Number 1259972, AFSL 297276, ABN 16108571875, Corporate Authorised Representative Number 1305567.